All right, hello dinos. So for my final video blog for Freedom and Slavery, I'm going to talk about Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own. Basically, the excerpt that we have in the text is one from Virginia Woolf giving a graduation speech to a women's college. And in it she talks about the systematic way in which women have been excluded from society. She finishes up the story by talking about how as freedoms have been given to women over the past few years at that point in time, there really hadn't been, this rush of female innovation, that, there really wasn't anything on par with what men had been doing in society. And I think the underlying theme that I would like to talk to you about today is that freedom doesn't really matter unless you use it. Virginia Woolf makes that very clear in the way that she talks to the women, is that without action, freedom doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't mean, that one section of the population is going to be further advanced. What it means is that, unless you're using your liberty, unless you're taking advantage of it, unless you're acting on it, then your liberty really is non-existent, and it really doesn't matter. So yeah, let's talk about that. So I'm going to read a quick excerpt from A Room of One's Own, and then we'll discuss after that how that relates back to utilization of freedom. There is truth in what you say. I will not deny it. But at the same time, I may remind you that there have been at least 2 colleges for women in existence in England since the year 1866. That after the year 1880, a married woman was allowed by law to possess her own property, and that in 1919, which is a whole 9 years ago, she was given a vote. May I also remind you that the most of the professions have been open to you for close to 10 years now. When we reflect upon these immense privileges and the length of time during which they have been enjoyed, the fact that there must be at this moment some 2,000 women capable of earning over 500 a year in one way or another, you will agree the excuse of lack of opportunity, training, encouragement, leisure, and money no longer holds true. So here we have Virginia Woolf harshly criticizing the women and women in general, because there has been opportunity open to them, but it's not in their nature yet to take advantage of the opportunities given to them, And from what I see is that that's what Virginia Woolf is really trying to convey, that we must take advantage of the opportunity, that the freedom that is given to individuals doesn't mean anything unless it is acted upon. This is further emulated in the following excerpt. Now it is my belief that this poet, who never wrote a word and was buried at the crossroads crossroads still lives. She lives in you and in me and in many other women who are not here tonight, for they are washing up the dishes and putting children to bed. But she lives, for great poets do not die. They are continuing presences. They need only the opportunity to walk among us in flesh. This opportunity, as I think, is now coming within your power to give her. For my belief is that we live in another century or so. That if we live another century or so, I am talking of the common life, which is real life, and not of separate lives which we live as individuals, and have 500 a year to each of us, and rooms of our own. If we have the habit of freedom and the courage to write exactly what we think, if we escape a little from the common living room and see human beings not always in their relation to each other, but in relation to reality, and the sky too, and the trees, or whatever it may be themselves, if we look past Milton's bogey, for no human being should be shut out of the view. If we face the fact, for it is a fact, that there is no arm to cling to, but that we go alone, that our relation is to the world of reality and not only to the world of men and women, then the opportunity will come, and the dead poet, who is Shakespeare's sister, will put on the body she has so often laid down. So what Woolf is saying here is that, as she says, habit of freedom. We must make freedom a habit of ours, or else it's not really there. And I think that is very true, and it's very reflective in society today that, we have to take advantage of our liberties, or else we forget that they're really there. And I think very much corresponding to this is a quote, well, it's not a quote, it's a clip from the movie V for Vendetta, wherein the main character, V, is talking about how people have made a habit of obedience, and he's trying to wake them up, much the way Miss Woolf is trying to. So let's check out that.
Good evening, London. Allow me first to apologize for this.
The emergency channel!
I do, like many of you, appreciate the comforts of the everyday routine, the security of the familiar, the tranquility of repetition.
Bloody hell.
I enjoy them as much as any bloke. But in the spirit of commemoration, whereby those important events of the past, usually associated with someone's death or the end of some awful bloody struggle, are celebrated with a nice holiday, I thought we could mark this November the 5th, a day that is sadly no longer remembered, by taking some time out of our daily lives to sit down and have a little chat. There are, of course, those who do not want us to speak.
Let me think, just let me think.
I suspect even now, orders are being shouted into telephones, and men with guns will soon be on their way.
It's Chancellor Sutler.
Damn it!
Why? Because while the truncheon may be used in lieu of conversation, words will always retain their power. Words offer the means to meaning, and for those who will listen, the enunciation of truth. And the truth is, there is something terribly wrong with this country, isn't there?
You designed it, sir. You wanted it foolproof. You told me every television in London.
Cruelty and injustice, intolerance and oppression. And where once you had the freedom to object, to think and speak as you saw fit, you now have censors and systems of surveillance coercing your conformity and soliciting your submission.
We need cameras.
How did this happen? Who's to blame? Well, certainly there are those who are more responsible than others, and they will be held accountable. But again, truth be told, if you're looking for the guilty, you need only look into a mirror. I know why you did it. I know you were afraid. Who wouldn't be? War, terror, disease. There were a myriad of problems which conspired to corrupt your reason and rob you of your common sense. Fear got the best of you, and in your panic you turned to the now High Chancellor Adam Sutler. He promised you order, he promised you peace, and all he demanded in return was your silent, obedient consent.
Inspector, you're almost through.
Last night, I sought to end that silence. Last night, I destroyed the Old Bailey to remind this country of what it has forgotten. More than 400 years ago, a great citizen wished to embed the 5th of November forever in our memory. His hope was to remind the world that fairness, justice, and freedom are more than words. They are perspectives. So if you've seen nothing, if the crimes of this government remain unknown to you, then I would suggest that you allow the 5th of November to pass unmarked. But if you see what I see, if you feel as I feel, and if you would seek as I seek, then I ask you to stand beside me 1 year from tonight, outside the gates of Parliament, and together we shall give them a 5th of November that shall never, ever be forgotten.
So what V is proposing here in this clip is that he's going to do a great act to kind of waken people up and show them, give them an act, a moment to rally around and to demonstrate their freedom of choice and their freedom of action. And, this is much the way that Woolf is trying to do. She's trying to talk to these women and just be like, take advantage of these opportunities, take advantage of these moments, because there have been so many people that have been denied them. If we're not constantly working for something better, complacency with the status quo isn't an exercise of freedom. It's an acquiescence to slavery. It's an acceptance of slavery. And that's what Woolf is trying to say in this, is that, we must act in our freedom or else we're not truly free. I'm not entirely sure if I agree with that. I don't know. I think going back to what Burke says, that some people just like, the simple, straight life is a fairly accurate way of portraying life. And I also agree strongly with the existentialist view that no one has the right to determine what is the right thing for somebody else, But I think that there's room in this world for all of these views to exist, that there's room for people to live who like the status quo, and that there's room for people to live who want more freedom, and that there's room for people to live who, they don't really care what other people do, that right and wrong is only defined by them. And I think that that's one of the greatest majesties about this world, is that there's 7 billion people on it, and everybody's entitled to that choice, even if they don't always get it. But I don't know. I like to think of the whole world as a giant disco ball with 7 different panes on it. You know, we're all looking out at the same room, which is life, but we all have a slightly different perspective on it. That's my way of seeing the world, is, you know, we all are sort of at the same point of origin, but we just have a different perspective. Of course, I may be crazy. Who knows? But yeah, so that is my journal on Virginia Woolf and how that relates back to the notions of freedom and slavery. Later, dinos. See you in wisdom and folly.